Hi, welcome to an instructional video of the A test, flown at Buckminster on the simulator. 10 knots wind down the runway. When you're ready, have a good look out, call taking off, and open up the throttle, allow the aircraft to accelerate, don't pull the aircraft off the ground, accelerate down the runway, gentle takeoff and a gentle climb out, nice and straight until you get to the operational height that you want to fly at. It's not too high in the simulator here. And when you're ready, turn into the circuit. You can do an oval circuit as shown on the diagram, or you can do a rectangular circuit. I find the rectangular circuit slightly easier to adjust, particularly on the second crosswind leg. So think about the speed as you go downwinds, because we've got 10 knots of wind from left to right, and think of the turns you need. So I'm going to do a tightish turn here, and a slightly more gentle turn as we come back in towards the wind. And we are aiming to overfly just the other side of the landing zone at the operational height that we want to fly most of the manoeuvres at. So I'm comfortable at that height, and when you fly past yourself there, that manoeuvre finishes and I can set up for the next manoeuvre, which is a figure of 8. This time I'm going to do an oval turn. So I get 180 degrees so I can see what's happening to the model with the wind, and when I'm ready I get another 180 degree turn, so again I can see what's happening with the wind, so I can start to plan how I'm going to fly that figure of 8, which is coming up next. So we turn the aircraft round, adjusting the throttle as well of course because of the wind, and aiming to come past to start the figure of 8 exactly as we were on the circuit, and we're going to be doing some downwind work. So call the figure of 8 starting now and make this turn fairly gently, and we've got the aircraft flying away from us at 90 degrees, but it's not a 90 degree turn because of the wind and the drift. The wind is affecting the model now, so I've got the throttle up and not using too much bank to keep accelerating the model in towards the wind. And then as we start to come downwind now, the throttle starts to reduce, the angle of bank starts to tighten up. Just remind everybody, come in downwind, left to right, continue the figure 8. And again, we want the aircraft flying away from us at 90 degrees. You can see the drift is affecting the model there. And then we turn in the second half of the figure of 8. Again, think about how we're going to be using the angle of bank and the throttle to keep these circles nice and round. And obviously we want to finish the figure of 8 in the same spots as we started it. So about there, but we don't continue around the turn, we now fly straight and level past ourselves. And we're allowed to go straight into the downwind to the circuit. So call circuits to land, and this circuit has to be rectangular, which is why I do one to start with as well. So again, I'm thinking about how the model has been affected by the wind, how the speed has been affected, and once again I might call downwind to land there just to remind everybody what's going on, make sure the landing area is clear. Make the turn onto the crosswind, and now we start to reduce the height. I want to lose about half the height on this leg and about half on finals. And remember, you're using the throttle to adjust the height and the angle, and you're using the elevator to maintain the speed. So we come round onto finals, and in the simulator I've got to land this quite early. Buckminster actually has a 280 metre runway, 40 metres wide. So the simulator, the graphics sort of close everything down quite a long way. So we land on and allow the aircraft to come to a sensible speed. If the motor stops, you're allowed to retrieve the model and restart it. If the motor's continuing, you can taxi it back ready for a takeoff. I'm going to taxi fairly quickly, just so we're not wasting too much time in the simulator. Take your time, particularly on the test. And when you're ready, have a good look out again, make sure the takeoff area is nice and clear. And once again, call taking off. And gently open the throttle and do another circuit. It's got to be exactly the same as you did to start with. So if you did oval, this one has to be oval. If you did rectangular, this one has to be rectangular. Obviously the accuracy of this circuit should be a little bit better, because now you should have an understanding of what's happening with the wind. So I'm thinking of the angle of bank, thinking of the drift I'm using, thinking of the angle of bank in this turn as well. And as we come downwind, once again, thinking of the speed and the sort of throttle which I used before. And once again, as we make the turn onto the crosswind, all the same things apply. And back once again to fly past yourself at that same circuit height as we did with the first one. And that manoeuvre finishes as you fly past yourself, which is there. But now we want to continue upwind and go a little bit further every time than you think you need because of the wind. Because the wind is going to be blowing you back in and tightening everything up. So think of the throttle, think of the angle of bank that you're going to need to give yourself plenty of space, plenty of room to make a nice unhurried turn back downwind. Obviously we're coming against the circuit direction, so tell everybody what you're doing again. So I'm flying a downwind circuit, left to right. And we come past at that sort of same height and speed as we did earlier. Don't go too far downwind because you're being blown that way as well. So a nice fairly tight turn, allow for the drift on the crosswind leg. And then a nice gentle turn as we come back into wind. And we want to keep the throttle up to keep the aircraft flying to a nice comfortable speed as we make this leg which is into wind. Don't be tempted to rush this or turn too tight. It's always better to go quite a bit further than you think you need because you're going to be blown back in if you're not careful. So consider that. So a nice gentle turn to start with. Doesn't have to be 90 degrees. It can be nice and sort of 80 degrees rolling out there. And then a slightly tighter turn. I'm just to announce once again that I'm coming downwind. So flying downwind, circuit height, left to right. And we allow the aircraft to fly past us exactly as we started. Once it comes past you, that manoeuvre finishes. And we can set up for the last manoeuvre, flying manoeuvre, which is for the simulated dead stick landing. So climb the aircraft up nice and gently, take your time to get it into a good position, and we're looking to come over sort of the flying area, takeoff and landing as we did before, a little bit higher this time, so around 200 feet. Don't go too high, otherwise you make yourself difficult because you can't see the model so well, but a couple hundred feet, and the examiner will tell you when to close the throttle, and as he does so, which is there, he calls the throttle close, you call dead stick landing, and the best thing is not to let the aircraft get too far away from you and keep a little bit more speed on than you think you need. If you're a little bit close and a bit fast, you can do some S-turns to get rid of the excess, but if you're too far away, you can't get it back because the model is a glider. So keep it fairly tight and just adjust the speed, flare off the speed as you think you need it. So flaring off the speed there, gentle touchdown there, and wait for the model to come to a stop. Obviously you can then open the throttle and taxi the aircraft back towards yourself, not to the pits of course, but a little bit closer, and then you can go and retrieve the model and complete the rest of the test, which of course will be the post-flight checks and then the supplemental questions. Hope you enjoyed the video, hope you found it useful, and see you on the next one.